amusement look back on the jokester. Rumbles of roars resonate through the group. Belly laughing. His mother raises her trunk, echoing the sentiment. Okay, this next person is none other than the most engaged LLC student. So please welcome up Eleanor.
Now I'm nervous. Okay. This is also a poem that I wrote last semester. Dark hair, honey skin, square forehead, circular stuck-out chin. Organized backpack, fantasy books, garlic bread, future on tenterhooks. Mom says she sees a lot of you and me. Your Bears hat sits in the back, half covered by a sunlit curtain. While I'm sad you never saw Avengers Endgame or Deadpool and Wolverine, I'm glad you never saw the downfall of your favorite football team. On the ugly floral couch is you, a pillow, and bed sheets. You're smiling, although your eyes are glassy and Stuttle unshaved. I'm 2 days old and refusing to eat, crying through the night, except your hand covers me and I'm asleep. Okay, next we have up my favorite crab fearer and Doctor Who watcher, Jonah.
So, recently, prior to stumbling into a relationship via existing near a beautiful woman, I was too terrified to ask out for long enough that through dumb luck, high charisma, and probably some form of Stockholm syndrome, she thought I was attractive and asked me instead. I dipped my proverbial toes into the world of online dating, because as I previously stated, I'm way too autistic to just normally approach a woman and talk to her. I'm literally more likely to stall so long I accidentally perform a year-long psyop. It's like that age-old debate about whether Batman could defeat Spider-Man, and the number one point of contention is always, would Batman have prep time? Because everyone knows it's the difference between a decent shot at winning and getting his ass beat. Yeah, I'm Batman in this situation. I can't say that about most situations, but in this particular situation, I am Batman. Anyway, Batman analogies aside, I've been using dating apps for the first time, particularly this little platform called Hinge. You may or may not have heard of it. And apparently, this little-known guy called Zohran Madani went in life there or whatever. Don't get me wrong, Hinge was actually like way better than I ever expected it to be, but using it took some serious getting used to, and not for the reasons you probably think. For those first few weeks, Hinge really made me feel like a total creep. You see, being a dating app, Hinge obviously has you fill in this little user bio when you join the platform so prospective dates can learn a little bit about you. Piecemeal, it's all pretty standard questions you might ask when you meet somebody like, where are you from? Where did you grow up? What do you do for a living? How old are you? What are your hobbies? Do you have any siblings? Overall, just a bunch of perfectly innocuous conversation starters. But on Hinge, you've got this neat and tidy little UI that just displays an itemized list of all the answers right under their photo. That felt so wrong when presented to me in aggregate like that. Because if you've grown up in our generation, or really any generation that's lived with the reality of the internet since a young age, the number one thing almost all adults tell you, repeatedly, like it is drilled into your brain by the time you're in middle school, is do not ever give your personal information to strangers on the internet. And there I was on Hinge, casually looking through pages of strangers' personal information on the internet. I could see who their family is, where they work, what they look like, where they live, what they do in their free time, where they go to school. That's probably less of a culture shock for people who already use big public social media platforms, but I am very much not one of those people. The closest things I have to social media are Reddit and Discord, which are both fully anonymous unless you decide to make them otherwise. In other words, they're for introverts. Anti-social media, as I like to call them. So to me, those Hinge bios felt like information I definitely should not have access to. Hinge felt like cyberstalking. There's really no other way I could describe it. It just felt like cyberstalking, even though it was completely innocent. Not that I've ever actually cyberstalked anyone. I'm not speaking from any kind of experience, but if I hypothetically ever were to, I imagine it would feel similar to when I was using Hinge. Because it took me weeks, and I do mean weeks, not to feel like the world's biggest perv, just opening the app. Thankfully, those days are over, and I've deleted the app. But in the end, I think Hinge still got the last laugh on me. Because guess what? My girlfriend learned what I liked, and that I was still single before asking me out. Think very hard, you get one guess. If you guessed she got her roommate to cyberstalk me on Hinge, you would be correct. And without further ado, I will turn things over to my wonderful girlfriend, Abby.
First things first. It wasn't cyberstalking if it was the video that we just found. Yeah. Trust. Also, second, that was the video that actually allowed me to confess to him. So honestly, Hinge, not that bad. Brings people together in ways that you don't expect. Anyway, here is a poem that I have titled Poetry. It's a baby poem. Okay. A sliver of sky I get to call mine, the words plummeting down like cats and dogs against my sidewalks, rolling down the gullet like gutters, washing the mind in the endless rhythms of why and what and who, rat-tat-tatting in the rippling pools of myself, of the entire universe. Once in a while, the ripples quiet just enough to make out the reflection of stars in the night, like the eyes of angels, of longings crystallized in the freezing air. I puff out a breath of clouds and pray somebody understands. Next up, may I please introduce the man who had a tower of breadsticks earlier on when we were eating Olive Garden, and also the man who I think likes Jared the best out of all of us. I please present Jack.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. I don't know, maybe you guys haven't heard me talk about this, but I had a certain creative writing professor last semester, and I wrote this poem for his class, and I complain a lot about that class, but I did end up writing a poem that I actually got into Horizon magazine. So, thank you, Jacob, I guess. Alright, this is my poem, The Hummingbird. At the edge of the sidewalk hover, not wings, not feathers, but a jeweled blur stitching light to air. One heartbeat of its trembling splits the moment open, my grandmother's garden humming with green sugar afternoons, and a far-off day when I'll pause at another flower, wondering why my chest feels suddenly lit. A bus sighs to stop, traffic flares and folds, public time reclaiming its noise, yet the tiny bright engine remains, holding the whole street in a single shining pause. That's it. And next, I don't know if this can go any lower. We have Sydney.
So I wrote this actually, I think right before I turned 18, and I revisited it this morning, and I just thought it was kind of nice to read it now, because I wrote it about going to college and kind of my feelings about that. So I hope you guys like it. It's called 18. There's an eeriness about growing older that I cannot place. The number I associate with my identity creeps higher, and my awareness of the dark crevices in our bucolic world grows. However, my significance decreases to the point I scratch on a ballot. I've not turned 18 yet and fully set my mind in maturity, but I have the expectation of crafting a clear vision of my future on paper. The complexities of adolescence bleeding into adulthood prematurely stretches my capabilities to understand myself. No one has taught me how to leave my signature on the world. I am only a data point on my country's transcript, but perhaps the ghostly shape ahead of me will be more. I can only hope. Next, we have Aiden.
This is something that I wrote right before coming to this event.
Oh, yay!
I wrote it and then came here. Anyway, this is the prologue to Blutjäger, a journal entry dated June 23rd, year unspecified, but most likely the late 1990s and early 2000s. Ark, the rumor mill spaketh again, and this time they weren't lying. After Yulia and I followed the last lead on Great Riches, which turned out to be a bust, I know, but a treasure hunting power couple can dream, dig? We heard about the resting place of the final hunt. It was supposed to be this, like, big-ass mausoleum or something, way far out in that frozen wasteland out east. I remember thinking, what in God's good name is a final hunt? Like, it sounds like some edgy comic book. Alright, whatever. The thing about that was that apparently other people had gone before, and most never came back. And the few who had just didn't talk about it. Almost like they were afraid to speak. So, naturally, Yulia and I decided to go. We packed everything we thought we'd need and got on a train that took us as far east as it could, which was a town right on the edge of said frozen wasteland. We asked around, and these people spoke the same language as us, which was weird, but convenient, and learned that it was only a couple days' walk to that mausoleum. Walk, specifically. And we were on our own, too. No one would take us. All they did was give us a map. So we made the trip, and it actually wasn't that bad. We prepared for a blizzard, but it was just cold and sunny. Probably because it's summer. Anyway, soon enough, we were there. And when I said this place was a big-ass mausoleum, I wasn't exaggerating. I think I've seen ancient castles and fortresses smaller than it. There was a huge glass dome above the main building right in the center, and the wings circled around a giant courtyard. It was full of winter trees and flowers. Pretty beautiful, actually. I'm surprised. So Yulia and I had expected there to be some kind of security in place. Maybe traps, maybe people we might have had to bribe, but no. We just waltzed right in, and there was nothing to stop us. We walked through a long, barren hallway for a while before we arrived at the atrium. I don't think any description of mine will do it justice. The entire ground was dirt, and it was covered in all sorts of flowers. It smelled so sweet, too. Above was that glass dome I mentioned earlier, and the way the sunlight came through just instantly put me at ease. It was really warm in there, so much more than outside in the hallway. But in the center was what looked like a sarcophagus. It was marble, with a bunch of engravings, and there was a sword sticking out on top. It looked a bit too bright to be steel, though. Still, sitting right in front of it was one man. Just one guy. We got a little closer, and this guy scared the crap out of us when he suddenly shouted, "Halt!" We halted. Oh, you bet your sweet ass, we halted. The guy picked up a rifle and stood himself up. It was an old rifle, in fact. I recognized it. I don't know the name, but I know it's been decommissioned for over 60 years. He walked toward us and said, "There are two of you. Why are you here?" He gestured to the sarcophagus. "For that?" Now that he'd gotten closer, I got a better look at him. I could sort of already tell from his voice and the gun, but he was old. He had to have been in his 80s or 90s. And there were claw marks, I think I counted 4, over his eyes. Speaking of eyes, they were completely white. No iris, no pupil, no nothing. And he wore a military uniform under a really cool cloak. I said, yeah, for the treasure that's supposed to be here. Is it in there? I nodded to the sarcophagus. Is the sword the treasure? I asked. I looked over and saw Yulia slowly tiptoeing around the man. She was being really quiet, so I was sure that if I kept this guy distracted, she'd be able to sneak around. But then, right as she was about to pass him, his head snapped toward her, and he held the rifle with both hands. He didn't point it at her, thank God. I don't know what I would have done if he aimed it. But still, he sounded real threatening when he told her to get back to my side. Once Yulia did, he said, as if nothing happened, it's not a treasure or relic or anything of that sort, but it's something very important and dangerous from the vampire age. Vampire age, Yulia blurted out. If she hadn't, I would have. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not like I don't believe that vampires once existed. Anyone with half a brain knows that they did. The vampire age only ended 60, 70 years ago. There are still photos and videos and records and all that. There are still living hunters and people who lived in those human reproduction and extermination camps. I just don't hear about vampires as a conversation topic often, and I've never personally met anyone from that time, at least no one who was fighting them. So the fact that this guy brought up the vampire age so casually was a shock. He ignored Yulia and continued. You two have 3 options. 1, you turn back now and tell no one of what you saw. Rather, tell them that the treasure here doesn't exist. 2, you try taking it again, and I kill you. Or 3, you sit down and listen to my tale. I didn't want to die, but I also didn't want to go home without learning anything, and I know Yulia felt the same. So, we looked at each other, nodded, and sat down. The old man did as well. He set the rifle back down and started. Now, stay silent and open your ears to the tale of how humanity conquered vampires.
Okay, is there anybody else who wants to read?
We got back.
Jerry, you should read. I don't have anything prepared. I was getting this event ready. I don't know. I could look real quick, but I don't think it's This is about you guys. It's not about me. It's about me. It's for you guys. Yeah, anybody else who wants to go twice? Okay. Well, we still have time in this room if you want to hang out. Want to play some music. Yeah, that was it. That was really great. Thank you guys for reading. I really appreciate you guys for this year. It made it really easy for me as an RA, having you all. No, trust. Actually, no, it was. You guys were great, a great bunch. Yeah, you were really amazing. So thank you for all your work and all your help. And yeah, I appreciate you guys being my LLC this year.
Well, thank you.
I will be on campus next year as well, so if you ever need anything, let me know. Message me. But yeah, I will see you around. Yeah, that's not a. Don't try and, I don't know.
Don't look at
Hurt
me
me or
now.
something. Kidnap me. But yeah, if you actually need something. Or if you just want to say hi. Okay. Alright, let's play some music or hang out or whatever. We can play some games. I don't know. What do people want to do? Or people can leave. If you hate, that's fine. Okay. All right. One round of applause for you all.